Welcome back to episode 161 of Chess Journeys, Tales of Adult Improvement. Here in Chess Journeys, we love to explore the glories of ratings gain, but we often dive into the plateaus and sometimes below that, the pits of despair. If you want to support the show, you can always go to Patreon for Chess Journeys. I want to thank our Queen level supporters, Tim Everett, Scott D4B6 Joe, Matt Bush, Jay Garrison, Donna Rich Burgess, Brandon Hallside, Jeff Peterson, Tobias Rex, Bob Berger, Nicholas Harrigan, Rich, Bradley Fender, Fletcher Ray, Nathan Peterson, Christian Glaw, Andrew Rimmer, Travel Mocha, Mohammed Ibrahim, and Besanoff, and King level supporter Ian Samples. And if you want to appear on the show, you can fill out the Google form in the show notes. We do all want to hear your story. And if you're interested in getting better at chess, I feel like you probably are. Noel Studer has a couple programs. He's got a new thing right now. Head over, check it out. There is a code in the show notes to support the show, to support Noel, to support you in getting better. Everyone wins. And we do have a sponsor for the show this week. We've got chessbook.com, and this is a great tool to help you build and learn your chess openings. What makes this tool unique is its goal to minimize the number of lines that you need to learn, prioritizing only the most common moves which you will see at your level. Once you've entered or imported your repertoire into the system, we'll compare it to your games on Lichess and chess.com to instantly show you where you've been going wrong and train you on those lines. I'm working on a new repertoire for white. It's been spotty so far, but I put it into the system and that's been amazing. I'm able to compare it to my games on Lichess and chess.com to show me where I've been going wrong. I was able to put my whole repertoire in there. Well, at least the part I've been working on in just a few minutes, had a manageable version of it. And what impresses me is that when I put in my repertoire, Chessbook immediately showed me with a whole bunch of arrows like, hey, now that you put it in, here's where you're going next. So I have a good idea of that. And I was able to go ahead and see how I've been doing with my openings recently as well. And not how I'd like. My Caro-Kann is going pretty good. And my white opening is going very badly. Now it's probably because I'm switching it up, right? I should be ready for that. But I still refuse to accept it. And so I'm working harder than ever to try to get it back to normal. And just some other features that I like quite a bit are model games for your openings. I think it's really important to be able to look at the flow of where that game is supposed to go if you play the opening right, instead of just playing a bunch of moves and then going, okay, cool, I'm ahead in the opening according to the engine. Now what? Nothing? I got nothing? Okay, that's not great. The model games will help you. And then also, if you want to just take an opening from Gotham Chess, Eric Rosen, or my favorite YouTuber, Hanging Pawns, you can do that. So what's best is that's free to try for the first 200 moves. And after that, if you fall in love with it, well, that's awesome. You can use the code SKULL20 for a 20% discount on a pro account for unlimited moves. So if you're like me and you're looking to get more from your openings with less study time, then chessbook.com is the tool for you. All right. Well, chessbook.com is awesome, but you know who else is awesome? Our guest today, we've got Evan. He's a returning guest from episode 48. He's an adult improver. He's a Substack blogger, and he is trying to do the impossible. He's chasing master, and he's so close, he can taste it. But that is often the hardest of all, those last couple of points. So, Evan, welcome to the show. Have you had a chance to play any chess yet today?
Yes, I have. After work, I usually play a few rapid games, and I played I think five today. I went 4.5 out of 5, so had a good afternoon.
Nice. Are you usually able to get 5 rapid games in every day?
Yeah, definitely. I make it happen. So,
Okay.
but 10-0, I don't play 15-10, which is
Yeah.
probably better for my chest. But I like feeling like someone uses a lot of time in the opening that it's actually worth something. So.
Okay. So is it kind of this idea of you want to have a minimum habit, and the minimum habit you have is I do 5 rapid games, I make it happen, I build my schedule around it?
Yeah, no, it's definitely part of it. I try to play every day. I think that's super important for me. I think I'm really prone to rust if I don't do something competitive, like in a 3-day span. I feel like I'm noticeably less sharp, like almost instantly.
Yeah.
So I definitely like to have some competitive games, and rapid is the easiest for me.
Okay. Yeah, I also have a minimum. Mine is much less than yours, unfortunately. I do one puzzle rush of survival a day, and I do one 10-5 rapid. That's the minimum. I've been crushing it
Survival's
lately.
great. Yeah,
But, yeah.
survival's great.
That's my minimum. And hopefully the people from my work don't listen to this, but I've decided I'm going to try to get the Puzzle Rush Survival in at work. Like during
Mm.
my lunch break, I should be able to do like half of it. A couple other moments throughout the day, I do some more, get home, do my rapid game, and boom, by 4, I should be done with the chess that I have to do. And then it's just gravy from there, and I'll just do whatever I want.
Yeah, as a software engineer working from home, I definitely sometimes take advantage of that flexibility.
Okay.
So heard.
Excellent. All right. So let's sort of catch up from let's start with where you were last we spoke. And the most
Yep.
fascinating for me was the van life. Are you still on the van life? And if so, or if not, how'd it go for your chess?
So I'm not on the van life anymore. I will say it didn't do awesome for my chess. I hit a milestone right before we got in the van. Like last time we talked, I crossed 2,000, and then we did the van life thing. And now, as you can see by my surroundings, we're in a house now, one that's a quick walk to a chess club. But right when I got home, I did have like another jump in rating. So luckily, I was studying pretty consistently when doing the van. But in terms of playing, besides the odd, edge of Utah bar that had a chess club, didn't get a whole lot of playing over the board in.
Okay. Were you able to play online well, or was your connection not good enough where you struggled to do that as well?
Well, I mean, my connection was great because I had like a Verizon hotspot, so most of the time, I was working as I was traveling, so I still had good enough connection for some chess.com games for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So,
even tried killer chess training for a little bit while I was doing that, but that
ooh,
was a little ambitious. I couldn't keep that up. It's tough. They have a lot to do over there.
yeah.
So
Every summer, I'm like, this is the summer. I'm gonna do killer chess training. And then I look at it, I'm like, I think it's for someone like 300 to 400 points higher rated than I
Oh,
am. I
it's
hate
like
to
a
admit it.
full-time job. They have lectures every day. It seems like if you can, put everything aside and just focus on chess or, most things, it's probably one of the best places to go, but
Yeah,
hard to
it's
keep up.
amazing. I'm very curious what they would say is like the legit minimum rating to get good value out of it. I'm sure they'd say it's for any rating, but like, what do they actually think is like a low rating to get value?
Based on who is signed up, I think it's like expert. I was one of the lowest rated people in there.
Okay.
So
All right. Okay. So we did the van life. It was actually fine for your online chess, but it sounds like, does that mean that over the board is a really critical component of you and your work?
Oh yeah, I need to do like actual over the board games. It's really important for me getting better. That's another thing I realized. I mean, part of my growth in chess has been kind of self-reflecting either through my blog or on your podcast. I listened back to myself like a few months later, and I just wanted to say I kept thinking to myself next time I'm on. I said so many things that I was like, wow, does not sound like an improving player. Like that I definitely don't agree with now. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that of what you disagree with. I
Hmm.
am curious, you said you're living within walking distance of a chess club. Was that
Hmm.
part of the plan? Like, were you like, we're getting this place because I can see the chess club, or is that coincidence?
My wonderful fiance definitely let me weigh in that
Okay.
piece.
All right.
But also I actually didn't even see the house before we got it. I just saw pictures
Okay.
and I was like, and I saw where it was and I was like, oh,
Yep, that looks
that it
great.
looks great. Yeah.
What about the big hole in the roof? Well, it'll be fine. We'll put a
Oh
bag
yeah.
over it. It'll be good. Okay. This chess club, is it open regularly or like once a
Yeah.
week?
Yeah, no, I've been playing there since I was little off and on. Your last guest, Nicholas Sloan, mentioned we usually go to Waukesha Chess Club, but this is the Hales Corners Chess Club. Tends to have stronger players overall, but
Okay.
um, but they also don't seem to have as big a group of players consistently.
Mm.
But I kind of like it that there's more players over 2,000 in general, and that ebbs and flows, like any club. So
Okay, cool. When you say it's not as big, what does that mean to you? I'm just curious what a small club
Oh
is and a
yeah.
big club is.
Well, the Waukesha Club between the reserve and the open usually has like 35, like 30 to 35 players,
Oh my goodness.
which
Okay.
is always surprising. But Hales Corners is usually like closer to like 20 to 25.
Okay.
So both of them are very active, healthy
Yeah.
clubs. So definitely
And
happy to have that in
is
Wisconsin.
this like a once a week tournament that it's doing?
Yep.
Okay.
Once a week, one 90-30 game.
Does it open other days to just go and like hang out and play, or is it just like a once a week thing?
Just once a week. Although in
Okay.
Madison, Wisconsin, they did a friend of mine, Andy Schley, just opened up Growth Chess, which is a brick and mortar chess center that has like every day something going on.
Oh wow.
It's kind of a far drive for me, but I've gone a few times.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome. So, chess club, big part of your experience. Van life made that tough. Okay. So let's
Mhm.
talk about what were you doing last time we talked? Because remember, you got to 2000, so like
Yeah.
must have been doing something right. But it sounds like you're no longer impressed by what you talked about. So, what did you say, and do you still agree with that?
So one of the things I said is that I didn't review my games. At that, I was like, oh, well, I mean, I just make blunders, and that's why I'm losing. So I don't need to review my games because I can just plug them into the engine. It'll tell me the blunders.
Yeah.
And like at that time, I think I was right. Most of my games were like one move blunders. But when I was stuck around like mid 2000s, right after we met, my next jump was by actually doing the cry method and like
Ooh.
deeply annotating every game. And I got a better understanding of like where the blunders happened. And then the second thing that I said that I disagree with now is that I didn't need a coach because again, I'm just making dumb blunders.
Gotcha.
Um, but now I have a coach and I go through my games a lot because eventually you get to the point where you're not just missing one move blunders. You're like,
Mhm.
the blunders are born from a lack of understanding in certain positions. So,
Gotcha.
and both
Okay.
of those things you need coach and
So
analysis.
even if you're still making blunders, it might not just be as simple as I'll stop making blunders. In order to stop making the blunders, you felt like you need to understand what was the common thread in your games that was leading to those blunders, and a coach sort of helps you find that.
Yeah, exactly. But I realized after I got past 2000, like a big part of me gaining rating is I'd always had like good results against really high rated players. Like I've
Mm.
always like I've had wins against masters, draws against IMs, that type of thing. But then I'll play a terrible game against the 1700, and my coach, Eugene Perelstein, pointed out that I would just not respect my opponents. I would just like do a little, and I didn't feel like I didn't respect them,
Right.
but my game indicated I didn't. Like I would do these threats that are like, oh, a little two move threat. If he doesn't see
Yeah.
it, this will be a cute win.
Right.
So I actually started visualizing that every opponent I play is a particular player. I'll name drop him, but he's the Wisconsin state champion. When he shows up, is Eric. I am Eric Santarius.
Okay.
He's a really nice guy, but he has an intimidating level of focus
Okay.
that definitely makes me focus.
So now
So I try to
every person you
visualize.
play is that guy I've never heard of, but I'm sure is amazing at chess.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty
Okay.
much every player I play, I visualize to be that person. Sometimes I forget to do it, but when it's an important game, I definitely do
What
that.
if it is a 7-year-old child picking their nose? Are you still able to pretend it's that person? Or are you like, listen, you've shattered the whole thing. I cannot say you're that person anymore.
No, I can still do the visualization.
Wow.
It's really key for me. Yeah, it really helps. I've definitely delved more, and I did say this in our last meeting is delving into the psychological side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time working through both of Rowson's books,
Oh,
and kind of tricks like that really help me because I'm an incredibly emotional chess player, so I can either use that to my detriment or to help. So I've been
oh.
using a lot more to help lately.
Okay, I got to hear this because I fully understand how the emotions go to my detriment. That I've got down. Help me understand how my emotions could be a positive thing because my goal has been to squash them during games. So if I could channel them, that'd be even better.
Yeah, so And I actually messaged you about this, but I'll refer to, I had what I'll call a religious experience in chess when I was in a dead loss position. It's not actually a religious experience, but in the book, Rowson kind of talks a few times about this idea of Kaisa being the goddess of chess.
Okay.
And part of the way you respect Kaisa, in my mind, is by doing every move to your best of your ability. So whenever I'm in a completely losing position, I'll just like walk out of the room and let myself kind of accept that the fact that I've lost the game's over. So in a
Okay.
way, I give up. I give up first, and
That's
then
amazing.
and then after that, I change the goal to just making the best move, the best
Okay.
computer move,
Right.
every move.
Okay.
And I've already emotionally accepted that I've lost the game.
Okay.
So it makes it way easier. And I've had multiple games in the last year and a half where I was -3 or worse against 1900 plus players and won the game.
Hmm.
And the craziest one is when I first started doing this idea of just giving up and then focusing on the best move. I was down a full piece and a pawn against a 2150, and he, thought for 8 minutes after I was just being stubborn. He thought for 8 minutes and moved his rook right where my bishop could take it, 3 squares away.
What?
And right as he left his hand left the piece, his head just hit the table, and that's the prayer to Kaisa. That's what did it. And I ended
Okay.
up winning the game, up the exchange. So
Wow. Okay. So a couple questions. How far do you have to go? Are there some times when you have to go like all the way to the car and start it, or is it just like walk out of the playing hall, walk back in?
Oh, I at that time I had to walk completely out of the playing hall and like outside. I was gone for like 8 minutes. Because like the other option
Yeah.
is I just stay at the board and I take a few deep breaths and I visually don't look like a crazy person, but
Right.
like I'm not playing well.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
not
just
playing
making
any
moves
better.
then, right?
So
You're like, I'm dead,
yeah,
whatever, I don't care.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a difference though for me when I accept that I'm fully dead versus like, oh, the game's over and I'm sad. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it helps
Okay.
to stay objective like that.
Yeah, that's so fascinating because I think it's one of the hardest things about chess is when you're down a lot or even a little, but it's a position where even a little means you've lost, and continuing to play not only your best moves, but to spot your opponent's mistake. There's nothing more
Yeah,
irritating than when you put the game in the computer and the computer's
and you had
like,
a chance.
"What are you doing? You could have won," but you gave up
Yeah,
so much that you couldn't find it.
yeah. No, what I find is like it's the despair that ruins me. It's
Yeah,
like it's not that I'm like sad that I'm losing or the game's over. It's that I'm like every move I'm in this deep state of despair that I've ruined it.
yeah.
So if I just start with just it's over, I lost,
Uh-huh.
then there's no despair anymore.
Right.
You know,
Now there's a whole new
so
game to be played. I'm
exactly.
just gonna
Yeah.
play. It's almost like you started a new game, but you spotted your opponent that night. Like I'm just gonna
Yeah,
give you. I'm so good. I'm giving you a
exactly.
night. I'm
Yeah,
gonna still
exactly.
win.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're Paul Morphy. That's pretty cool.
No, I wish.
Um. Okay. Well, that is some amazing stuff. You talked about Rowson. Is it Chess for Zebras? Is it the Seven Deadly
Seven
Sins?
Deadly,
Okay.
both of them. I kind of just slammed through both of them after I went into them after I was just itching 2100, and then I had a -60 tournament, and
Woo.
I was like, oh my god, I need to just do something drastic, and I just read those books and pump up your rating like in like quick succession.
Okay.
Um, got back over 2100.
And the Rowson books are quick reads, right? There's not a lot of chess in them. You just kind of go through them.
The first one, Seven Deadly Chess Sins, that's a quick read,
Mhm.
but Chess for Zebras is definitely a lot more involved, I felt. And
Okay.
it's more about like game examples of him applying stuff from the first one. It's almost like Chess for Zebras is like a workbook for the
Oh,
psychological stuff in the first one. I don't know. One thing I love about Ralston's writing is he talks about it too, is that he just rambles a lot and it's all like a string of consciousness.
all right.
And I found it really fun to read. But if you're going to reading those books just looking for some sort of like cohesive theme, you're not really going to find it. I think everybody just pulls something powerful psychologically for them personally from it, and that's what makes it such a good book. It's just like a lot of great ideas, just like vomited into one book.
What level do you feel like that's for? Because it kind of feels like when I tried it when I was like 1300 way back when, I was like, I feel like I need a book that like tells me about backward pawns, like not what he's
Hmm.
doing. Like he's not really
Yeah,
giving you structured chess improvement, right? He's just kind of like, here's chess life advice almost.
yeah. I feel like you have to be at least class A to like fully appreciate it. And it's funny because he's mainly writing about like psychological stuff in there.
Hmm.
So you could apply it to anyone, but like a big thing he talks about and all the things, all the sins apply to it is like trend shifts and like recognizing when the game is going in what direction. And I feel like if you can't accurately evaluate a position, then you're not going to really understand when to use those, but
Yeah.
that like what sin,
Yep.
for anyone who hasn't read the books, basically he breaks down all these don'ts in chess that are psychologically mistakes, and he
Mhm.
refers to them as sins
Okay.
in the book. So
Yeah, and that is certainly one of my great challenges is when that tide has shifted. You know, my coach and I will often talk, and he'll be like, "Whoa, why did you make that move?" And I'm like, "Because I'm attacking his king." And he's like, "You were attacking him. You're about to be mated. You should have
yeah.
shifted. You're losing now. What are you even
Hmm.
talking about?"
Yeah, it's hard to like notice when you're attacking and then it's over.
Yeah,
That's really hard to just be like, all right, we gotta change our mindset,
yeah,
especially I think he calls that in the book, he calls that echoes. That's the way I remember it, is when the sound of the earlier point in the position is still in your memory and you're
mhm,
acting on the emotions of a position that isn't there anymore, like an echo. So
definitely. Okay, so you said though that you are able to channel your emotions. Is it simply the "I'm lost, I'm resetting"? That's a great piece of advice. Are there any other pieces of advice? Let's say you're not lost and your emotions are kind of out of control. Maybe you made a little blunder that doesn't lose the game. Do you have a way to channel that in a good way, or are we still working on that
yeah.
one?
No, I think for me it's kind of a weird answer. So like certain emotions, I think for different players are good things, and that would be a bad thing for another player. For
Okay.
me, when I'm paranoid or fearful, that's like a good thing. Like all my best wins against high rated players, like even when I'm slightly better, my plans usually, and my coach pointed this out, would be like, oh, I have to do this and then that, but I have to be careful of, you
Hmm.
know. And
Okay.
against lower rated players, I would just be like, I'm gonna do this and then that, and then they're gonna fall apart,
Right.
because they don't know stuff, and that's when I get into trouble.
Mhm.
So I think like understanding which emotions work for you as a player. Like I'm a very overconfident player when I play by nature. So
Mhm.
any emotion I have that fights against my confidence is probably a good emotion for me to be
Okay.
feeling at the board. But like anger, usually comes from like I think I'm better than you, so I should win. So for me, anger is a terrible emotion to like keep around at the board.
Okay.
But I think it changes person to
And
person.
how do you get rid of your anger at the board? Do you go over like punch a wall really hard and then they're like, I'm good.
It is the walk away thing for me because I'll get really frustrated, but I'm never frustrated with my opponent. I'm always frustrated with myself. I'm frustrated with like feeling like I'm not playing to my own standards.
Yeah.
So for me, taking a breath and then either giving up completely and then playing from there,
Hmm.
or just like recentering myself and being objective, and
Okay.
that usually works for me.
So
When
you
I was a
don't,
kid, I was kind of a maniac with my chess rage, but I was like an elementary schooler, so I'll forgive
okay, okay.
myself.
Okay. So you don't do the Beth Harmon and go in the bathroom and like scream at you're trash. Why are you playing?
But no, not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah. The problem is whenever I go in the bathroom, there's a lot of other people there and they would think it was really
Uh,
weird if I started doing that.
yeah, don't even get me started on U.S.
Yeah.
Chess tournament bathrooms.
Beth had the bathroom all to herself, so she had an advantage there. All right. I do want to follow back on two earlier things you said. One was you really started looking at your games carefully. The Jesse Cry method is like, wow, like you're spending hours really going over each one. But I guess my question is, are you regretting that you didn't do that earlier? Do you think you would have more progress, or do you think that around 2000 is a good time for people to start going, okay, my blunders now are more sophisticated. They're not just simply a knight. Now I really have to dissect why I'm making them.
Yeah, I think 2000 might be a little high, but I think past 17 or 1800, it's
Hmm.
probably good to do that. Um, and I kind of believe in this like Venn diagram idea where there are like 9 or 10 different ways you can know a certain move is the best move. I think like even like in an opening, you play e4, e5, knight f3. Like knight f3 could be a good move because you know it's theory, or it could be because you put a knight in the center, or it could be because you're an aggressive player, you're attacking a pawn. So I think
Okay.
when you go over your game, you are coming up with different reasons to play good moves, and I think that's the important thing. And I think when you're like a lower rated player, you don't know enough different reasons to play the same good move
Hmm.
for it to be worth the time investment.
Okay.
Um,
That's really
that's
interesting.
kind of my thought of it.
And when you're doing this, are you putting down the different reasons for why that's a good move that you felt in the moment, or are you combining them with like, this is in the moment why I thought it was a good move, and now that I'm analyzing it later, I'm actually seeing there's these other reasons why it's a good move, and so I'm like building my knowledge based on that.
Yeah, no, pretty much exactly what you said. So the first time I go through it without an engine at all, I just say exactly what I was thinking in the game, with no like analysis really, except for what my concrete variations were. And then the second time I go through, I try to like put more psychological thoughts in there, of, like why generally I thought it was a good move because of the situation or because of the trend. And then the third time I go through is just with the engine blunder spotting, basically.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. That sounds like a good one. Um, so you talked about getting a coach, and once again,
Mhm.
do you think this is something you sort of wish you'd done earlier? Do you think
Yeah.
there's a rating people should have, or is it just everyone's different?
No, I think I definitely should have got a coach earlier. I do regret that. And, I think that my arrogance in my game, which is like my bad quality, kind of bled into my decision to like not get a coach. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll just stop blundering pieces and I'll just be a master. That's the only thing missing from my game.
Wow. Okay.
That's like what I almost was emulating in our last interview, and I think that was like a really wrong way to look at it. So I really love my coach, Eugene
Yeah.
Perlstein. He's like affected the way that I review games and like understand my openings a lot.
Okay.
So he's a great coach.
So you feel like a coach who you really resonate with, who you vibe with, is good even at an earlier level?
Yeah, definitely. I think a big thing too is having a coach that you get along with, and has similar, I don't know, strategies of learning about chess to you. I mean, he used to be a software engineer, before he
Oh,
went full into chess, and he's very technical with how he uses chess base and engines and stuff, and I really like that. I think when the first few times I had 3 or 4 coaches I tried first before I settled on Eugene for like the last 2 or 3 years now, I guess 2 years. And they were great coaches. They were like really knowledgeable about chess, but I just couldn't put my finger on why I was not excited to go to the lessons. And really, it was just like I didn't like their method of enjoying chess.
okay.
You know?
Yeah, that's a critical piece, right? It's like a marriage. Just because that person's great doesn't mean
Yeah,
they're the right person for you.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since you're working with the Eugene Perelstein, have you read his amazing book, Evaluate Like a Super GM?
No, it's on my list
What?
next.
He
No,
should
it's
fire you as a client. This is ridiculous.
no, he had a slew of books to recommend before I even get to that one.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That's fair.
so I've got a list I've still got to get through, and also lots of endgame studies. He really wants me doing endgame
Hmm.
studies, and I have been doing them. They're definitely helping,
Okay.
mainly just for stamina in these really long tournaments.
Oh, okay.
Just doing really long calculation work. So.
Have you done at all like the Polgar, the giant Polgar book, the Mate and Twos? They kind of feel like
Mhm.
very easy endgame studies.
Yeah, no, I've done all the Maiden twos. I'm on the Maiden threes right now.
Ooh.
Actually, that's my before I go to bed book now, but
Me
it's
too.
basically like it's like a tome. And
Yeah.
so I have a hardcover version
Oh,
that it's like really printed big, so it
yeah.
goes from like comically large to like cartoonishly big. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
have
like a
that.
brick.
And then on Kindle one day it was like $4. And so now
Yeah,
before bed I lay with my Kindle and solve like 20 mate and twos.
there's something about the inconvenience of it though that I kind of like when it's just like a big book.
Yeah.
It's just kind of ridiculous, and it makes me feel more committed, I guess.
I will say this, if like the problem is the lighting in my room, but like if I went to a coffee shop, I would love to bring that and just be like, this is
Yeah,
my book that I
boom.
brought to the shop.
Yeah,
That'd
yeah.
be fun.
Drop it from like 3 feet up and just like shake the table that you're on.
Everyone's
Yeah,
coffee goes flying. Oh, sorry about that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, so what is it about endgame studies that you value and you think there's a rating cutoff for those as well? Because it feels like a lot of really good players recommend them, but I don't hear it often recommended for sort of lower level players. And then also, it's really hard to just like buy an endgame study book
Yeah,
because they're usually this mishmash of easy and totally impossible and not well labeled.
yeah. If for anyone getting into it, I would recommend John Nunn's Endgame Challenge, and it's like a really hard book, but the explanations are so incredible that it like teaches you how to eventually get those type of puzzles. I think a lot of people go at it wrong. I don't mean to like at anybody, but I think if you start with easy end game studies, it kind of defeats the purpose because if it's too
Oh,
easy, you should
yeah.
just be doing puzzles. Like the I don't think the point of end game studies is to get them right. It's just to
Okay.
like struggle. It's just for it to suck and it's for it to struggle.
Okay.
And also to be okay with like getting it wrong. You know, I think
Okay.
that's like a really important part of chess is just to be okay with like getting stuff wrong and pushing the edge of what you can do.
Okay. That's exactly what Cyrus Lakdawala said on a
Mm.
couple interviews when he was talking about his endgame study book because people were like, it's too hard. And he was like, that's the point. You
Yeah,
got the point of the book.
yeah, you're getting better by getting them wrong. And
Hmm.
that's like an important thing is like if you get every single one wrong, but you're spending 20 minutes calculating like as deep as you can see, you're
Yeah.
like punching the edge of what your brain can do, you know? And with that, I think that's kind of the point.
Okay. Is there any sort of rating cutoff that you would recommend? Is this like I'm 600,
Okay,
I'm blundering every
maybe at that
game?
point, no. I'd say like 1500.
Okay.
I think is like the minimum before you look at an end game study because at that point you can't really calculate deep enough
Hmm.
to like have it be worth your time.
You also kind of need to know the fundamentals of endgames, right? You need to know opposition, some
Yeah.
of the basics. Okay.
Yeah. I would say I still have pretty major holes in my end game theoretical knowledge. I just learned what the Lucina position was like pretty
Ooh.
recently.
I was just going to ask you if I set up the Lucina position, can you solve it on the spot?
I maybe
My
not
answer
not a
is
definite.
always yes until the person sets it up. And I'm like, wait, no, that's not right. You did it wrong. They're like, no, I
Yeah,
didn't.
you didn't cooperate with like exactly
What was
the
that move?
yeah.
Yeah, that's been my problem with chess and knowledge. Okay, so that's some interesting stuff. I guess the question that I want to ask you, you're partially answering already, but it's like we got your process, what it was like to get to 2000, getting to 2100, and then now to try to get to 2200. Have you made big changes? It sounds like game analysis, meeting with your coach, end game studies. Have you like amped up your openings? Have you amped up your tactical work? Have you read a bunch of strategy books? What are you doing to try to get to this next level?
So really the main thing is diligence. And this is the Hendrickson thing that I had mentioned. So I still notice when I was losing games, it was like weird, uncharacteristic blunders that were costing me games against lower rated players. Against higher rated players, yeah, it'd be like the nuanced stuff, you know, because I'm focused and there's Eric Centarius, you know, across from me.
Right.
Um, but but sometimes when I take people lightly, still the type of mistake I would make would be missing a threat, one move into a line, or something like that. And I think like players at every level have this issue.
Yeah.
Um, But the way to fix it, and in my opinion, after meeting with a local NM, Nolan Hendrickson, was the Hendrickson process, which is pretty much like a lot of other checklists, but with a few tweaks to it.
Okay.
Um, the most basic version of it is CCT, which is checks, captures, threats that you teach every kid. But I noticed that I wasn't doing that. Like you tell kids when you teach them,
Yeah.
don't you check, every
Yeah.
capture, every threat, even if it's silly,
Mhm.
and I wasn't doing that. So the Hendrickson process is like an expanded version of that. And I noticed like when I was like 20, 30, 20, 40, I just started like every time my brain spotted just from intuition, like, oh, this is a position where there's only one or two good moves, I would like actively do the Hendrickson thought process one
Mm.
step at a time. And that like made me jump 100 points, like up to 2150.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's purely been that.
And
So
what is this thought process? Or is it a secret?
no, I can tell you. He he actually gave me this big packet. I'm not going to read it,
Oh,
but it goes through the different types of blunders that are relevant to it. But I
okay.
have an acronym that I use. So it's Seggers can calculate better. I emphasize the G because the G is one of the letters. So it's S is scan, which is just generally look at the position,
Hmm.
corner to corner. Don't calculate anything, just look. And then the G is Golden Rule. It's named after GM Golden, which is the CCT. So look at every single one of your opponent's checks, threats, and captures. Every single one, you have to spot every single one, even if it's really stupid.
Hmm.
And um, then it's candidates calculate, or yeah, candidates calculate, and then blunder check. So in most of my mistakes, I was either not blunder checking or I was not doing the golden rule. So if I did those, I would just not miss stuff, and I'd catch myself almost making a terrible move, and
Hmm.
then I'd be like, oh, and I'd go on to draw or win rather than lose on the spot. So
Okay. When you say blunder check, when I think of blunder check, I think of CCT as the blunder check. Do you have a next level blunder check? Is your blunder check just
mhm.
simply like, whoa, does this drop a piece?
So the blunder check is yeah, it's not CCT. So the golden rule should get all the one move threats and one move capture stuff. The blunder check is once you've already decided on a calculated line from your
Mhm.
candidates, kind of flip the board in your mind and try to imagine a way to refute your line as if you're the other player. So
Okay.
is there any possible move they could do that you hadn't already considered?
Okay.
That's the blunder check in
And so this
this
sounds
checklist.
like an incredibly time consuming process. So it sounds like you're saying you rely first on your intuition to tell you this is one of those moments. Like this is the
Yeah.
big moment. We got to go all in right now.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do it every single move. That wouldn't be possible. So you definitely need to build your intuition, and that's where like woodpecker method and lots of puzzles come in. Is
Okay.
being able to sense that moment. And I feel like my sense is really good. I feel like that's master plus level for me. Is like it's very rare where I miss a critical moment.
Mm,
It's that I wasn't making the right decision in
okay.
that critical moment.
So you're not
So.
like E4, E5, time to use the Henderson method.
No, no,
Okay.
yeah, not enough time for that. But you
Yeah.
you free like usually in a game, the Hendrickson method doesn't take that long. Like if you get good at it, it sounds like a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
you can rattle through the stages if you're doing it when you do puzzles at home.
Mm,
And it's much better to do that than like kind of incoherently shove different line combinations in your head with no real organization. Like that'll probably take longer than a
yeah.
long sounding process. So,
Okay. That makes sense. I find it very interesting that this is Nolan Hendrickson because Willie Hendricks in his book
mhm.
Move First, Think Later says basically the CCT method is unwieldy and impossible. Like he says, if you try to do that on literally every move, well, then you'll run out of time. And so it's not a good thing to do. But you're saying, Willie, my friend, I'm not saying every move. I'm saying a couple of moves, a couple big moments.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the I've heard of the Willy move first, think later, and that it's just basically like calculating through the moves that you just see. But I
Yeah.
think that's the difference, is that you need to train your intuition with like lots of puzzle sets, so that you can, know when to use that. I don't think even in the original, Kotov tree of analysis that he was suggesting that you do that every move. I think that's kind of ad hominem, or whatever the whatever that would be.
You did mention the woodpecker method. Did you actually do the legit woodpecker method at all? Have you done the different 7 circles or whatever?
No,
Okay.
friend of mine, Nick Sloan, that you had on, he loves the
Yeah.
woodpecker method, or 7 circles. He gives credit to the OG De La Maza,
Yeah.
um, which is, it is fine too. But I just do the chessable spaced repetition.
Okay.
I don't like do the full cycle, and I think it's because Daniel Naroditsky like poisoned my opinion of it, because
Mm.
I asked him in like a I was in the corporate chess league with my company for a bit, and they had like a seminar with Daniel Naroditsky where you could ask him questions. And
Yeah.
I asked him about woodpecker method, and he basically like turned his nose up at it and said it's like a dumb waste of time because you're not spending time doing new puzzles. So I think I'm like hedging my bets by not fully doing it.
Mhm.
But I definitely think it works, for especially newer players.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm so fascinated by it because every high level player I've come across says, no, it is not the way to do it. Different puzzles is better. And every person I've ever met who's done it has had substantial rating growth immediately after doing it. So I'm
yeah,
like these are not matching up. Which one is true? And then the great players will be like, well, sure, if you do like 10,000 puzzles in 3
yeah.
months, it doesn't matter
New
what
or
puzzles
not,
you
do new or not new, yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
get a lot better. I think, yeah, that's, again, I'll go back to the Venn diagram thing, where it's like you can get good in 100 ways. I think it's important to remember with chess improvement, like what people are bickering over is usually like opportunity costs. Like everything's going to work,
Right.
and Nate Solon talks about this. And if you spend a little bit of time doing anything, it'll help.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Um, so I guess my next question is you got to 2100, you got to like 2160, you've dropped back. Like,
Mhm.
how much do you want master? Is that like a big part of your life? Is it like a thing that you're like, if I get it, that's cool? Like, how much of that is what you're after right now?
It's a big part of my life. It's really important, to me. Yeah, I mean, I bounced a little bit back, but I'm not worried about it. I used to like freak out whenever I lose rating, but I don't really care anymore. The main thing, and Ben Feingold said this one about him getting GM, the main thing is getting master strength. Everything else will
Mm.
follow. And I feel like year over year, my peak rating has gone up like 60 points a year.
Okay.
So I think I'm still on pace for that, as long as I have a strong back half of this year. Um, so yeah, I mean, the main thing is that I need to get better, and the main way I can get better right now is just continuing to work on the Hendrickson thought process and be like really diligent so that I don't blunder. I think that my ceiling is where it needs to be, but my floor isn't quite where it needs to be. So
Mm, the dreaded floor.
yeah, absolutely.
And
I
the
have the capacity to
floor,
play some bad chess.
that's the part that kills you too, right? Because that's when it's like
Hmm.
you're exposed, you're embarrassed. Like I thought I was better than this. Uh,
Yeah,
those are the worst
yeah, but
parts.
it happens. There's like random variants. You have to. That's why I like online play a lot. Is you can just play so many games that, and people don't like to hear it sometimes, but chess is chess, and like if your online rating is like far below your over the board, either you're not focusing online, or you might be a little overrated over the board. And it's just,
Yeah.
when you can play 40 games in a day versus 40 games in a year, the one where there's 40 games in a day is probably the more accurate rating. You know,
Yeah. See,
that's what my,
I'm
my view on it.
I'm much higher rated online. So would you say I'm underrated over the board then?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's maybe, I mean, but there also might be psychological factors when you play over the board. And I think that's where the psychology stuff comes in, is like when your own thoughts are preventing you from calculating well, you know?
Yeah. For some reason, when I'm playing at home a rapid game, I never have thoughts like, what are you doing with your life? you could be doing something so much better than wasting all this time. I'm just having fun playing a chess game. But like if I travel to a hotel and spend all this money and the game's 5 hours and I've been losing for three, some bad thoughts start creeping in, man.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask you, like, do you consider when you're evaluating a position, like with my thing, when I'm arrogant and I need to try to be fearful in my games, I guess when you're evaluating an equal position, do you tend to like think you're worse off or better off?
It depends on what the trajectory of the game has been. I have a
Hmm.
very hard
Okay.
time shaking the echoes of the game. But I will say I lean more towards overconfidence. My coach often talks about that. He's like, I don't want to beat the overconfidence out of you because I think it's good to be
Mm.
to play with confidence, but you also need to recognize that you are often like you're saying the game's +3 and it's equal. Like I don't even know where this
Yeah.
evaluation is coming from. Like it's absurd. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. For you, yeah. I mean, you sound similar to me, and for me, the key is giving up all emotion and just accepting I've lost and then being
I'm gonna try
objective.
that. I'm gonna go out to the
Um,
car even and just be like, all right, we're going home,
it's
and now I'm
over.
coming back in for a new game.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, with this last 80 or so points that I need, it's just gonna be Hendrickson thought process and staying objective. So I'm pretty confident I'll get there sometime in the next 9 to 12 months is probably a fair estimate, I think. And all my online ratings are above like a lot of masters that I know. So
Hmm.
like that's a good confidence booster for me too.
Okay. And so you don't feel like you need to do anything dramatically different now to go from 2100 to 2200. You're already doing the things you need to do. It's just keep doing them, keep being diligent, and gaining that strength.
Yeah, I mean that's a beautiful part of chess is like I feel like I'm still so terrible at it. And there's still so much that there's still so much that I need to get better at everything. My openings aren't good enough, my middle game's not good enough, my end game's not good enough, and I'm still a psychological mess. But like the people above me who aren't Magnus Carlsen are in the same boat, you know? So I feel like I know what I need to work on. That's the main thing.
It's so funny. I kind of forgot about this thing, but like all summer, I know myself as a terrible chess player. But I'm back at school and I'll have
Oh,
new
and you're a
students.
god.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll have new students on Monday. They all think I'm a chess god. Like I can beat
Mhm.
all of them with no problem. And their chess.com rating is like 500. And so they're just like stupefied by me. So it's quite fascinating to hear someone thinking you're amazing at chess, and then you show up at the chess club and it's like, no, you're terrible. And you're like, okay, cool. I got these
Yeah.
two different images going on. So it's
Yeah,
quite
it just
quite
the
interesting.
ladder goes so high, like all the way up to Stockfish, that
Uh,
really we're all like pretty awful at this
yep.
game. It's like it's so crazy, and you know, for me, I think humbling myself that I am terrible at it has like been a good feeling. You know, to feel like 2200 is an arbitrary number. Like it makes me a master, but it's
Right.
not like I'll be that much better at chess than I am now.
Hmm.
So
Are you gonna make people call you master? Gonna go to a
no,
restaurant and be like, it's
just on the notation
master.
sheet. No, just on the pairing sheet. If there's an
Okay.
NM next to my
Oh yeah.
name, it'd be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And people will be
And
scared.
the chess.com little tag. I want to play Entitled Tuesday so
Yeah.
Kramnik can accuse me of stuff.
Yeah, that'll be great. I play an Untitled Tuesday and Kramnik never shows up.
Ah, he should. I'm one
Um,
of his alts.
you did send me a quick Twitter message that said you want to talk about the mistakes that you think adult improvers make. I'm very curious to
Hmm.
hear this. As an adult improver, what are the mistakes I'm making?
Not adding you specifically, but I guess the main ones are ones that I can attribute directly to your last guest. And I'm not trying to single him out. I love Nick. We talk like every day about chess,
Okay,
and
so
he'll
hold on,
agree with
hold on. Let me
these
get Nick on the line. Nick, this
things.
is for you. Okay, go ahead.
So at the beginning, and this is a weird one, is I feel like so many players one get sucked into chessable, and it's good to know your openings, but they'll learn like these really positional repertoires where you're not like learning tactics. Like a big one I've heard so many guests say, on your show, on Lona's show, on any different podcast. I swear I've listened to every episode of every chess podcast while I'm at work. But
That's,
the one I hear a lot is the Iron English.
oh,
And I think that's a good example where like you're setting up this solid structure that you
mm-hmm.
know how to play. But like if you're out of that, you're really going to struggle. And I think again, going back to my Venn diagram thing, is that people put themselves in a pigeonhole. And Nick, like for example, thought he was a positional player, so everything he tried to learn was like positional. And that's like, all good chess players are, great chess players anyway, are kind of universal. They play what's on the board, they be objective. So I think a big thing I would say for anyone under my rating, because I can't really speak to anybody who is over my rating, is don't label yourself as I'm like Tall or I'm like
Mm.
Lasker or try to emulate a different player. Like you just need to get better at being you. And I don't think you know enough yet to know what you are.
Okay.
So
So
I
don't
think that's like a main one.
label yourself. Don't say I'm a positional player, so I'm playing the following openings.
Hmm.
Do you recommend then to play different openings and kind of switch it up so you can experience the different pieces of chess?
Yeah, definitely. Of the last five coaches I have had, and I've stuck with the fifth one like for the longest by far. All five of them said that they learned like a little bit about every opening, and
Oh,
a great book for that is the FCO by Van der Staren. He
hmm.
has like some words about every single major opening, um, and then just play with like you like. I mean, you might not even be able to articulate why you like it. You just like it. So
Right.
then just do that.
Gotcha.
So
It's not about I like it because it's positional or it's tactical. It's something that resonates with you.
yeah, definitely. And like I feel like my openings don't really rhyme super well.
Hmm.
And I like, for example, I play the Caro-Kann, so I get a lot of like, oh, against D4, why don't you play the Slav? And it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know, I don't like it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
That's my only reasoning, and I'm sure it's a great opening. I
Right.
don't like it. So
I wonder if you would recommend then also Chess Structures by Rios. Like that seems
yeah,
to have that same feel of like you learn a little bit, maybe not necessarily about one opening, but about all the specific structures associated with the openings.
yeah, no, definitely. And I also think it's important, and this is a weird one. I think it's important to have a favorite pawn break. Have a
Ooh,
pawn break that you're passionate about.
I
Like
agree.
if you're a King's Indian player, you're gonna like that F7 to F5 pawn push.
Hmm.
And if you're a Caro player, you're gonna like
C5.
C6 to C5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
think you've got to have a pawn lever, a pawn break that you're passionate about. I
See,
think
and
that's
now
more
I know
important than a
you've
favorite
read
opening.
I wasn't sure if you'd read Pump Up Your Chest, but now I know because
Yeah, I said
you're the only
lever.
person who calls it upon lever for some reason.
I like it because I like using it as a lever, and he didn't even say this in a book, but a grandmaster, Josh Friedel, who has a YouTube channel, he's a grandmaster in Wisconsin. He talks a lot about like when to keep tension and when to break tension, and when I think of it as a lever, I can like think of it more as tension. When you
Yeah.
call it a pawn break, it like implies you got to take, and you
Oh
don't
yeah.
have to take.
Yeah.
So that's why I
Okay.
like lever better.
Yeah. I like lever. Any other mistakes that you think adult improvers make?
Um, Not do tactics. I mean, that's the easy one. It's a low hanging
Yeah.
fruit. I mean, the reason little kids are so good, and everybody complains about playing little kids, it's never bothered me. I feel like they usually screw up in the end game. I
Mm.
don't know what it is, but I play well against kids. But it's because they're iPad kids. They're just zoned into their iPad. They're tapping away. They're doing a million puzzles a day, and that's why they're getting so good. And you're like reading, books about when to use the bishop pair, and
Right.
and you're not doing your puzzles. So
And
definitely puzzles.
then also when you go to use it, you're like, I know I read about it, but I can't actually do it in the game. Like I don't really know how to use the bishop pair. I know I should get it, and I know I'm doing great, but I don't know. I can't actually use it. Also, I do have to
Yeah.
say real quick, Forrest, my middle school friend, I
Mhm.
know he's not talking about you because Forrest gets
Oh
mad.
yeah, I heard that interview too.
Yeah,
He's like this slander against children, and I'm like,
right.
and when I get outplayed by a younger fella in the end game, I'll say that you could say I told you so. But
Yeah.
so far, it's been my experience. I'm sure his end games are great. He seems
Okay.
really confident about it. But so
I don't really know anymore because he's surpassed me by so much. Anytime we play Blitz, he beats me long before the end game. So I can only assume his end games are as good as the rest of his game.
yeah. But no, I think that the other thing is like a lot of, and I don't even like the term adult improvers. So I know this is like towards
Ooh.
adult improvers, but like I feel like you're pigeonholing yourself because for some
Okay.
reason the connotation with adult improver has become like, oh, you got too much life stuff going on, so you don't have
Mm,
time to do chess stuff. And it's just like, people who play tennis aren't adult tennis improvers. Like they're just
sure.
trying to get better at tennis. And I
Yeah.
think chess is the same as anything. Like if you put time in, you're going to get results out. So I think calling yourself or anyone calling themselves an adult improver is kind of like putting yourself in this category as if you're behind the prodigies right out of the gate, you
Gotcha.
know, which maybe that's true. I don't know. But
You don't think there's any reality to like being adult with all these responsibilities, so you do have less time compared to like the kid who's like, yes, I'm home from school. I got the next 6 hours on my iPad.
oh, I mean, it's definitely totally true. It's just that I don't think it's helpful, you know.
Okay, that's fair.
And I think that like Fabi recently said on the C Squared podcast that chess is inherently meaningless, and it is. It is inherently meaningless. I mean, everything
Uh,
maybe is, but
feel bad for
chess
Fabi if he
is.
says that.
I know it was a very. I think there's a video of like a slow piano playing as he says that, in, like black and white. It's pretty
Yeah,
funny. But chess is just time in, time out. So I mean, if you don't prioritize it, of course, you're not going to get better at it. And that could be the same with a kid who has 10 soccer practices and just likes hanging out with his friends.
yeah,
I mean, that's not chess's fault or anything. That's
yeah.
just life. So.
And also, again, Forrest will want to correct me. Not every middle schooler can do that. They have all kinds
Yeah,
of
no,
stuff they're
it's
doing.
getting more and more intense. I mean,
Yeah,
kids got to have extracurriculars, and college is more and more intense. I mean, they're busy too.
yeah,
So
exactly. Yep. So I think we make some unfair statements there. And so maybe you're right. Maybe we're all just in the same boat and it's a way to mollify our lack of improvement and maybe it's just holding us
yeah,
back.
hey, that's a cry. That's a cry statement. Is that's what he loves about chess is rating don't lie. It's objective. I mean, if you're not getting better, that's chess is telling you it's your fault, and that's
Yeah.
great because then when you win, that's your fault too.
Okay, that's true. I like
So
that part. I like when I win. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that part's great.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess the final place to wrap up here is what are your goals? I mean, sounds like master's clearly a goal. Is that the only goal? Do you have other non-rating goals? Do you have goals
Mhm.
beyond master? Do you want to teach every kid in Wisconsin how to play chess? Like, what are your goals?
Well, first master for sure. That's like what I'm giving most of my chess time to. But after that, I want to write a lot. I really enjoy writing about chess. It's like really fun. So I think the moment I hit master, I'm gonna switch like most of that chess time into writing about chess time because I feel like I got a lot of stuff I want to say.
Nice.
Um, and I'm sure someone smarter than me will come in and tell me how wrong it is, and I look forward to that. So just
Is
want to
it
be
going to
part of
be a
the
Rowson style
zeitgeist.
book or is it going to be like your Substack?
It'll be. I really love the psychological part of
Ooh,
chess. So if
okay.
I wrote a book, it would be like purely about psychology and amateur games.
Okay.
And I want my Substack to be more focused on that too. And I think it really resonates with me because I was and am such a head case when I play. So
Huh. I have a good title for you. Eight Deadly Chess Sins.
just one upping
It's
Rowson.
one better than Rowson.
Yeah, he covered all the major ones. I don't think I can think of an eighth one, but I'll
Okay.
I'll I'll try something
Okay.
lobster related. My
Yeah, there
handle.
you go.
Yeah,
Don't get pinched. I don't know. All
hey,
right.
it's good.
Well, thanks so much, Evan, the Chess Lobster. Make sure you check out his Substack. Check out the first interview we did, which apparently he's disavowing part of. That shows
Yes.
growth, right? That's what we want to see in our lives. And where can people get a hold of you if you want to follow? Because you have all kinds of cool stuff. The was it the oh man, the Hendrickson method, how you look at games. I'm gonna say it right here. I was gonna ask you this off the air. Would you
Okay.
be willing to send me one of the games you've annotated so I can put it up on my Patreon page? I'll have it as free so anyone can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll do
definitely.
that. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be just anyone can look at it, but it'll give you an example of how Evan looks at his games. All right, so where can people get a hold of you, Evan?
Just Chess Lobster on Twitter or the Chess Lobster on Discord if you want to shoot me a DM about chess. I love responding to random chess questions. I light up.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's probably it.
Okay. Well, it's been a lot of fun, my friend. Good luck on your journey. I am definitely rooting for you. If I remember correctly, last time you like came on the show and then you hit 2100 soon after, was the whole goal to come on was just because you think it's going to take you to master?
I would be lying if I said that wasn't a contributing factor. There's something about reflecting and then listening to myself be incredibly
Yeah.
wrong about things that helps me progress. So I appreciate you having me on.
All right, fascinating. I hope this is a critical part in your journey to 2200. We're all rooting for you. It'll be here soon. I can tell. I can tell you're close. You're close. All
Thank
right,
you.
man. Thanks so much. And for the rest of you out there, thanks so much for stopping by today. Hopefully you got some helpful tips to help you on your own journey. If you're stuck, that's okay. Come back next week. We'll have another guest for you. And have a great one, everyone. Goodbye.